powered by demerarawaves.com.
With the news at this time, I'm Ron Robinson. A very good day to you. First, the lead stories. An inquiry into the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. Regionally, Antigua and Barbuda wants the Sub-Regional Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. And the leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition, United National Congress, may be challenged for her post at her party's next internal elections. Those highlights, along with our international news from the BBC, in just a moment.
Not seeing returns on your dollar? Then advertise with News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM and see results. We give you competitive rates, wide coverage, appealing programs, streaming online worldwide on dem waves, and we give you value for your money. You'll see returns when you advertise with us. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 for those competitive rates. 103.1 FM, accurate information blended with great music.
And now the news in detail. Public Works Minister Juan Edgell says an inquiry has found that the captain of the trawler that sank several weeks ago had informed Noble House Seafoods that the vessel had been taking in water. However, Mr. Edgell says that Noble House never reported the occurrence until 9 hours later. He says the trawler captain was not licensed and he and his crew were not trained in safety measures. He said the inquiry found that a fake license had been produced by the now deceased captain to Noble House Seafoods. The Public Works Minister said the report of the Board of Inquiry's investigation into the marine incident involving trawler World Friend 307 on February 19, 2022, would be made public and provided to the families of the 3 deceased persons. According to Mr. Edgell, there was no evidence that a certified marine surveyor surveyed that boat and said that this was worthy for sea. Mr. Edgell said once culpability or negligence is established, Attorney General Anil Nandlal would be asked to advise on compensation. He said the captains work on a freelance basis with fishing companies. Director General of the Maritime Administration, Stephen Thomas, said if the company had notified the authorities that the trawler had been in distress, nearby vessels could have responded to a Midday call or the lighthouse for help. The Alliance for Change, AFC, is calling on the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. That political party, which is part of the wider opposition coalition, says the state-owned Guyana Rice Development Board should reduce the levy to $0. The levy was previously $8 US per ton, but now it is $6 US. The AFC also says that monies accumulated over the years from the levy should be used by the government to subsidize the price of fertilizer. If that is not sufficient, that political party is also recommending that some of the oil revenues be used to subsidize the fertilizer price. The Guyana government has already decided to subsidize electricity and water bills, although the operational costs of the Guyana Water Inc. and Guyana Power and Light have increased due to the rise in the price of fuel. The government has also reduced all taxes on fuel to $0 in an effort to reduce the price at the pumps. The Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, says none of its workers is visiting homes. That electoral management body says it is not engaged in any such exercise, and no one has been authorized to collect information from anyone through house-to-house visits. People's Progressive Party activists have been visiting houses in several areas to verify that persons on the registration list are still living at the stated areas. GCOM explains that registration staff and scrutineers are required to visit the given residential addresses of applicants for registration to verify that the concerned persons actually live at the addresses they would have provided. The electoral management body says such visits are made only after agreement between the applicant and the concerned GCOM staff would have agreed on a date and time. 7 graduate engineers hired by SBM Offshore have arrived in Singapore for hands-on training on the Prosperity floating production, storage, and offloading vessel. That vessel is being constructed to support the Payara development in the Stabroek Block, offshore Guyana. The 5 men and 2 women arrived in Singapore on Monday. In August last year, they traveled to the Netherlands, where they spent 6 months undergoing training in different areas, while also working with the team designing the vessel. The graduate engineers returned to Guyana in February before the final stint of training. They were recruited from the University of Guyana in 2021 after undergoing a rigorous vetting process. SBM Offshore has said it intends to repeat the program given how well it has been going and the clear benefits being derived. At the conclusion of the 18-month program, the graduates are to be fully immersed in the company's Guyana operations in roles that they are firstly most interested in, and secondly, which fit their background and areas of training. And now we take a look at regional news. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has served notice to the visiting Duke and Duchess of Cambridge that Jamaica intends to break ties with the British monarchy. He says Jamaica intends to attain and fulfill its true ambitions as an independent, developed, and prosperous country in short order. Holness noticed that Jamaica will remove the Queen as head of state and become a republic comes 4 months after Barbados officially took the step. Their Royal Highnesses arrived in Jamaica on Tuesday for a 3-day official visit to the island as part of activities to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen. This year marks 70 years since the Queen's ascension to the throne. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown has called on the member countries of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, to provide a united front in a bid to stave off efforts by the European Union to derail the controversial Citizenship by Investment Program, CBI. Under the CBI, foreign investors are afforded citizenship of a country in return for making a significant investment in the socio-economic development of the particular country. Several Caribbean countries have instituted CBI programs. Speaking during a webinar on the topic Fight or Flight, the Future of Citizenship by Investment, the Antigua and Barbuda leader acknowledged that there was some risk in selling citizenships. However, he said so far there was no evidence that anyone has used CBI programs from any of the Eastern Caribbean member states to commit terrorism or launder money at the scale of what is happening in North America and Europe. The United States has moved to decline visas to holders of passports obtained by the CBI, and the European Union has passed a law giving countries 3 years to phase out the program or face visa requirements for all its passport holders. The EU Parliament has called for an EU levy of a meaningful percentage on the investments made until golden passports are phased out and indefinitely for golden visas within the bloc. The resolution passed by the Parliament with 595 votes to 12 and 74 abstentions says golden passports should be phased out fully. Brown said the debate that the smaller countries are being targeted by the bigger countries have been offering similar type CBI programs. In Trinidad, an opposition United National Congress UNC parliamentarian is not ruling out the possibility of challenging Kamla Persad-Bissessar for that party's leadership whenever the next internal elections are held. Trinidad Newsday reports that he left this possibility open while speaking with reporters. In the past, the UNC and PNM have put their respective internal elections on hold in years when a general or local election is taking place. Munilal did not say whether he would contest the next UNC internal election as part of a slate led by Persad-Bissessar or another state against her, or be part of a rival state led by someone else. In the last UNC internal election in December 2020, Persad-Bissessar's state scored a landslide victory over a slate led by former government minister Vasant Bharat. Article 18 of the UNC's constitution says the party's political leader serves for a 3-year period, and all other members of the UNC's national executive serve for 2 years, unless they resign or are removed from office before their tenure ends. Executive members remain in office until their successors are elected. This means Persad-Bissessar's term of office as UNC political leader will end in December 2023, unless internal elections are held before that time. Party sources said internal elections are due around December. And now for international news, we join the BBC.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. President Biden is in Poland for talks with Polish leaders and to witness firsthand the humanitarian crisis caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Arriving in Rzeszów, about 80 kilometres from the Ukrainian border, Mr Biden paid a visit to US troops who've been temporarily deployed there to bolster NATO's eastern flank. Later, he's expected to meet his Polish counterpart, Andrzej Duda. He'll also receive a briefing on Poland's response to the more than 2 million refugees who flooded across the border from Ukraine in the past month before travelling on to Warsaw. Here's Dan Johnson.
This is a substantial, important visit, a major symbolic gesture by the US president. The fact that he is here so close to the Ukrainian border, showing support for people in the east of Europe, for Ukrainians who are here as refugees, and for governments in this part of the world, because there has been growing concern, particularly amongst Polish people here in the east of the country, about what this could mean for them, not just for Ukrainians.
The authorities in the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariupol say they now believe around 300 people died when Russia bombed a theatre last week, where hundreds of people were sheltering in the basement. At the time of the attack, the word children had been written in giant letters on the ground outside the theatre. Petro Andriushchenko is an advisor to the mayor of Mariupol. He said there was little doubt about the numbers killed.
We know from the people who were in a shelter in the theatre, there were near 600 people inside the theatre before attack, and near the 300 people in a shelter under the theatre. So we can talk about 300 people die in this terrible situation here.
Russia has admitted that more than 1,350 of its soldiers have died fighting in Ukraine in what it refuses to call a war. The Russian Defence Ministry said Vladimir Putin's special military operation would continue until the goals set by the president had been achieved. Earlier, Ukraine said Russia had lost more than 16,000 soldiers in the month since it invaded. There's no way of verifying any of the figures. Ukraine also says it's destroyed 560 Russian tanks and 115 warplanes in the past 4 weeks. The White House says the United States has no intention of using chemical weapons under any circumstances. The National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, told reporters this would be the case even if Russia were to use such weapons in Ukraine. But he warned Moscow there would be a severe price to pay if it did so, and said there was convergence among Western leaders on how to react. This is Moira Alderson with the latest world news from the BBC. Israel says it will host what it describes as an historic summit with the United States, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. The two-day meeting will start on Sunday and will be attended by the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and his counterparts from Israel and the three Arab states. Morocco, UAE and Bahrain normalised relations with Israel under an agreement brokered by the Trump administration. Two leading newspapers in Sri Lanka say they'll have to stop publishing their print editions because of a paper shortage. The country is suffering its worst economic crisis in decades and a shortage of foreign currency. Simon Ponsford has the details.
The English-language daily The Island and its Sinhalese version, Divana, say they can't afford to pay the soaring cost of paper. So from Saturday, they'll publish online only. They're the latest victims of a dire shortage of basic supplies in Sri Lanka. Already this week, school tests have been postponed for about 3 million students because there's not enough paper and ink. And there were protests at petrol stations over growing fuel shortages, leading to 4 deaths.
The Irish Foreign Minister, Simon Coveney, has been ushered away from an event in Belfast because of a security alert. Reports say a van was hijacked and driven to the church building where Mr Coveney was speaking. Army bomb experts are there to check for explosive devices. Loyalist groups in Northern Ireland, who want to retain links with Britain, have fiercely criticised the Irish government for supporting the Brexit trade border with the rest of the UK. Armenian-backed forces in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh say 2 of their soldiers have been killed in clashes with Azerbaijan. The Artsakh Defence Army in Nagorno-Karabakh accused Azeri soldiers of using attack drones and small arms in what they said were repeated violations of the ceasefire in place between the two sides.
And now to end the news, a look at the lead stories once again. An inquiry into the sinking of a trawler more than 1 month ago has found several lapses. The Alliance for Change wants fertilizer to be subsidized. And regionally, Antigua and Barbuda wants the sub-regional Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to take a united position against Europe's virtual outlaw of purchased citizenships. And the leader of Trinidad and Tobago's opposition United National Congress may be challenged for her post at her party's next internal elections. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves. For the